folks, Chris here from Brickhouse Paddles. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about our brand new Retro 87 hybrid composite paddle. So this is a hybrid composite paddle, very similar to our other paddles. It runs a 13 millimeter high density polypropylene core. We run a fiberglass substructure under this, so that's what's underneath your cherry wood, and of course the natural cherry wood plane surface. So again, a couple of things before we get into how the paddle plays, just on the construction of our paddles. So first off, we use a heavy-duty edge trim, low-profile edge trim on all our paddles. We have that custom extruded for us right here locally, and it does more than just protect your paddle against damage from ground strikes and debris. It also is a structural element to the paddle in that it provides support around the edge of the paddle, which is traditionally a weaker part of your paddle. If you look at the side profile of this blank, you can see there's a lot of void spaces across here. If you don't have adequate support around the edge of your paddle, what happens is when you get a ball strike or you tap paddles, you can damage that area in between those cells, and that will quite often lead to premature failure of your edge trim, meaning the glue bond breaks. At worst case scenario, it can lead to delamination of your paddle and reduced sweet spot area over time. So that's a big component for our paddle, and one of the reasons we run a very thick and very sturdy edge guard. So something else that is a little bit different on our paddles is we run more of a square or an octagonal shaped handle rather than sort of a wider profile. The reason we do this is we want the paddle to be able to be easily adjustable in your hand depending on what shots you're making, and it has to be comfortable. And we just found that this sort of shape, it's this octagonal shape, it's a little bit more like a tennis handle or a badminton handle. It's just really comfortable in the palm, as well as it locks the paddle into place very nicely, so you don't get a lot of twist on impact. So in theory, you have fewer net shots and fewer pop-ups, but it is a very comfortable grip to play. And then of course we use our premium grip over top of that, which gives it a nice cushion feel. So when somebody picks up one of our paddles, the first thing they comment on is usually the aesthetics of the paddle and how attractive it is with the natural wood grain. The next thing they usually comment on is the lack of a textured surface. Well, you don't need a textured surface, at least with our paddles, to produce spin. Our finish has a natural coefficient of friction of 0.16. Maximum allowed by the USAPA is 0.18, so we're very close to the maximum allowable coefficient of friction, which allows us to generate plenty of spin without having to texture a surface. The other reason we don't texture the surface is we want the paddle to play consistently from the time you buy it to the time you decide to retire it. And if we apply a textured surface, it usually wears out within a very short time, and it's not going to have that consistency over the life of the paddle. So that's why we don't texture our surfaces. So how does the paddle feel? Well, when you first pick it up, you're going to notice that it feels very solid. It's not, despite the fact it's a mid-weight paddle and roughly about 7.6 ounces, you're going to find it's got a very, very solid feel to it. Not heavy, just solid. It's well balanced. It's not extremely head heavy. The cushion grip is very, very comfortable in your hand, and you're going to find it's very easy to find a position for the paddle and then have it sit in that position without having to use a killer grip. You find it fits very, very nicely and locks into the palm of your hand with a very light touch. Those are probably the things you're going to find as soon as you pick it up. So how does the paddle play? Well, a paddle performance is very subjective. If you give a paddle to 4 different people, they're going to have 4 different thoughts on how that particular paddle plays. So I'm going to give you my perspective on what I really like about playing with the new 87 and what I think its strengths are. First of all, for me, it seems to have really helped my short game. My dinks at the net are much more consistent, and my drop shots are much more consistent. The fact that it's a fiberglass paddle, it still has lots of pop to it, but the natural wood plane surface seems to dampen some of that pop, and the paddle to me plays a little bit like a thicker cord paddle but without actually having to go to a thicker core paddle. I don't like dragging all that extra bulk around. It's got a great sweet spot. It's very forgiving, and it is easy to. It's a very easy to control paddle, and the accuracy of my shots, I think, have improved significantly. Whether I want to pick a corner or drive it down the middle or whatever, I think my accuracy is definitely improved with this particular paddle, and the power in this paddle is it kind of just sits there and waits for you to call it up. It's not in your face all the time, which I think is part of the reason it's such a nice controllable paddle, and my shot placement is much more accurate now. That power, just when you want it, it's there. You just have to drive it maybe a little bit harder, and it's easy to put a ball right down the middle or down the sidelines. But it's just a very controllable power, which is a little bit unusual for a fiberglass paddle because they tend to be a little bit less controllable. And people are always talking about, if you really want control, you have to go to a carbon fiber paddle. Not so. I think the natural wood plane surface really helps to add that element of control to the paddle. It's a very fast and agile paddle, being a mid-weight, which I like personally. I'm not a fan of big heavy paddles and dragging extra bulk around a court. I like to be able to get to the ball. If I can't get to the ball, I can't return it. So we try and make all our paddles just a little bit faster and a little bit more agile. Overall, this is really a very, very nice paddle, and it's an excellent paddle for beginners right through to people who have been playing, 3, 4, 5 years. It's just a nice, nice paddle to play with. I'm super impressed with it, and I'm very happy with the results that we've been able to achieve with it. And from the feedback that we're getting, so are the people that have been testing it for us over the last 8 months. So we're really happy with it. I think you will be too. So how do you get yourself a Brickhouse paddle? Well, we have distributors and pro shops, ambassadors and pros right across the country. If you can't find one that's close to you, give us a call, send us an email. We'll figure out how to get a paddle to you. You can try it out and give it a go. There you go. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this informative. I encourage you to check out the new 87. It really is a phenomenal paddle. And thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you on the courts and hopefully with a new Brickhouse paddle. Take care.